I'm leading the most vibrant life that I could have dreamed of. I'm a septuagenarian looking for the sexagenarian guy.
Artist Edith Hike says she's always done things a little differently. The 74-year-old grew up in a traditional household, but says her life experiences are far from conventional.
I was in my 50s and I was married. That was already my third marriage. I was widowed once. I was raised to believe that I would be married, I would be taken care of, and I think that part of my story is that I'm the first generation of women that got the pill right when I was 18, 19 years old. And so we've discovered a sense of our own freedom so that we didn't have to stay married in the same way as my mother did.
A few generations later, Edith is now part of a growing wave of married Americans choosing to split up after age 50, a phenomenon known as gray divorce that even has Hollywood talking.
You came home from the trip and you're like, I read this amazing article. I go, tell me about it.
I didn't say amazing, I said fascinating.
Fascinating.
Fascinating article.
And I go, what's it called? She goes, The Astonishing Rise of Gray Divorce. I'm like, do tell.
Gray divorces have long been a part of pop culture, with big screen depictions in movies like First Wives Club in 1996.
I just spent the last 25 years with the most self-absorbed, arrogant man on earth who is getting married to my therapist, who I paid a fortune to lecture me on self-esteem. Huh?
You win. Hands down.
To 2009's It's Complicated.
But I was just trying to figure out why someone like you is divorced.
And what'd you come up with?
Something in the "you're too nice" department.
That. And my wife fell in love with my best friend.
Since those two films, census data shows the divorce rate among U.S. adults over 50 actually doubled. Among those splitting up were a lot of celebrities, from big-name actors like Oscar winner Meryl Streep, X-Men star Hugh Jackman, and sitcom queen Leah Remini. Writing in a statement, we both changed, as people do, and we got used to playing roles that didn't fit us anymore. Designer and celebrity stylist Rachel Zoe recently filed, and billionaire philanthropist Bill and Melinda Gates divorced. And even political leaders like former Vice President Al Gore.
All of these celebrity gray divorces are really emblematic of what's happening more broadly in our population. They also serve to normalize gray divorce in the second half of life.
Susan Brown is a professor of sociology at Bowling Green State University who helped coin the term gray divorce.
Many of them are deciding to call it quits because it seems that after having been busy with their careers and raising their children, that once they are confronted with an empty nest and retirement and they've got a lot of time on their hands to spend with each other, they may find that they just don't have that much in common.
Brown says baby boomers who came of age during the first divorce revolution in the 70s and 80s have a unique perspective on marriage.
Older adults are actually pretty supportive of divorce, and increasingly adults see alternatives to marriage, whether that be cohabitation or remaining single, that there's no longer the pressure there once was to remain in what we would call an empty shell marriage.
Today, close to 40% of Americans getting divorced are over 50, and at least 1 in 10 divorcees is at least 65 years old.
No marriage is ever divorce-proof. People are getting divorced into their 70s and their 80s after being together for more than half of a century.
And Brown says couples are evenly split on their legal splits.
Divorce initiation is actually pretty divided between men and women. Women seem to be maybe a little bit more likely to initiate divorce, but many would argue that that could actually just be reflecting the fact that women are the ones who have to do these types of tasks within relationships, filing the legal paperwork and moving the process forward.
I don't want to throw my ex-husband under the bus. I will say I would have soldiered on in that marriage forever. And so in many ways, I'm grateful that he gave me divorce wings.
64-year-old Laura Stassi was married for almost 30 years before she says her husband suggested they separate.
A realtor knocked on our door one day and said, hey, I've got a family who's interested in buying in this neighborhood. And they gave us an offer we could not refuse. So I thought this would be a great time to sort of get to know each other again. You know, to be empty nesters. And his idea was, no, this is a perfect time to split the proceeds in half and, you know, be on our merry way.
At first, Laura says she felt she'd lost her identity, but after divorcing, regained her independence.
I had been his last name longer than I was my own last name because we got married so young. So I took back my name and found a job and sort of reestablished myself and think of myself only as a me instead of a we. Then you saw a counselor.
Today she hosts a podcast, Dating While Gray, about navigating relationships in the dating scene as an older adult.
So were you surprised when she said she wanted to split?
I was very afraid of being an old person alone in the world where I'd never find anyone again. I was very afraid of I was very afraid of disrupting the family.
The things you've expressed, other than the finances, have been what women feel. They want to keep their families together. They're terrified of being on their own. You know, it's a really hard thing to talk about yourself, to talk about your marriage, especially if you feel like a failure, which I have not yet met one person who didn't feel on some level like they failed.
Laura believes her listeners are also more realistic about love.
We are not invested in any fairy tales. We are eyes wide open about love, romance, sex. I hate sounding like I'm cheerleading for divorce because I'm not, but I'm totally cheerleading for if you're not happy with your relationship, don't stay together just because you think that's what you're supposed to do.
For Edith Hike, she says she's thriving being single.
In my marriage, I was so lonely. It was a real emotional loneliness. The thought of getting married again, I honestly don't see it.
Taking on new career opportunities like managing a local waterfront park and trying out new hobbies like stand-up comedy.
I'm a serial monogamist with a touch of bigamy.
But she says there's one fad she won't try again.
I did try a few online match kind of dates. They didn't really work out so well. Looking back at my life, I'm just so thrilled to be where I am. I'm in good health. I have my vitality. I feel loved. I couldn't be happier.